Our 10th anniversary wasn't marked by champagne or a quiet dinner, but by the sound of Sarah's suitcase wheels rolling down the driveway, leaving me alone with a hollow feeling. It was a sound that would echo in my memory, marking the precise moment I started to realize our marriage was unraveling. I stood at the window, watching her small car pull away. She didn't look back. 10 years. A decade of shared meals, late-night talks, arguments, makeups, and building a life together. And now, this. She was off to some resort town, a girls' weekend, with friends I barely knew, while our special date passed unacknowledged by her. We had always marked our anniversary, even if it was just a quiet dinner at our favorite Italian spot. It was Better Day, a private tradition. We'd been together since college, built our first home, navigated job changes, and supported each other through everything. Our marriage, or what I thought was our marriage, felt solid, comfortable, and predictable in the best way. Sarah was the practical one, always organizing, always thinking ahead. I was more laid back, content to follow her lead on most things, happy in our routine. We didn't have huge, dramatic fights. Our disagreements were usually about chores or forgotten appointments, quickly resolved. That's why her behavior around this anniversary felt like such a betrayal. When she first mentioned the trip a month earlier, it was almost an afterthought. Oh, by the way, Karen's organizing a girls' trip for the second weekend of July. You know, just a few of us, a spa weekend. My heart sank immediately. The second weekend of July was our anniversary. I brought it up gently, casually. Honey, that's our anniversary weekend. She waved her hand, dismissing it. Oh, is it? Well, it's not a big deal this year, is it? We can celebrate some other time. I tried to push back, suggesting we postpone the trip, or at least do something significant before she left. I reminded her of our past celebrations, the thoughtful gifts, the small trips we'd taken. I even suggested we do something grand this year, a surprise weekend getaway just for us. She just laughed. David, it's just a number. 10 years is nice, but it's not like it's 25. Besides, I already told Karen I'd go. It's all booked. You're being dramatic. The word dramatic stung. It was her go-to phrase whenever I expressed a strong emotion she didn't want to deal with. It made me feel small and selfish for wanting to celebrate something that felt so important to me. I tried to let it go, to be the understanding husband. Maybe she was right. Maybe I celebrate selves being dramatic. Maybe it was just a number. But the hollow feeling persisted. In the days leading up to her departure, a subtle shift occurred. Her phone, which she usually left charging in the kitchen or on her bedside table, was suddenly always with her. She'd carry it from room to room, even to the bathroom. If I walked into a room where she was on it, she'd quickly flip it over or put it down. It wasn't overt, just a quiet, constant guardianship. I chalked it up to her packing list, perhaps coordinating with her friends, but a tiny voice in my head questioned the secrecy. She became unusually preoccupied, buzzing with an energy I hadn't seen in a while, but it wasn't directed at me. She was excited about the trip, which I understood, but it felt like she was already gone, mentally. Our conversations became even more perfunctory. I'd ask about her day, and she'd give one-word answers, her eyes flicking back to her phone screen. I tried to initiate intimacy, to reconnect before she left, but she always had an excuse. Tired, stressed about packing, already half asleep. Her excuses were plausible, but the pattern was undeniable. Her packing was also odd. For a spa weekend, she seemed to be bringing an excessive number of outfits. Not just casual wear, but some dresses that were definitely more going out than spa resort. I remember seeing a new, brightly colored cocktail dress hanging in her closet, tags still on. New dress for the trip? I asked, trying to sound nonchalant. She looked up from folding a sweater. Oh, that? Just something I picked up on sale. Thought it might be fun for dinner out one night. It seemed a bit much for a quiet spa getaway with a few close friends. But again, I told myself I was overthinking it. It was just a dress. The night before she left, we had a stilted dinner. I tried to talk about our past anniversaries, to evoke some shared nostalgia, but she kept changing the subject. "Are you sure you remembered to pay that bill?" she'd ask, "or don't forget to take the recycling out." Practical, yes, but completely devoid of warmth. I finally gave up, pushing my food around my plate, the silence between us heavy and uncomfortable. I went to bed feeling like a stranger in my own home. The morning of her departure, our actual anniversary, was even worse. There was no kiss goodbye, no "I'll miss you," no acknowledgement of the date. She was in a hurry, bustling around, checking her bags, making sure she had everything. I stood in the doorway, watching her, feeling invisible. She tossed a quick "See you Sunday" over her shoulder as she headed out the door, her voice bright, almost giddy. It was the giddiness that bothered me the most. It felt like an escape, not a temporary absence. After her car disappeared, the silence in the house was deafening. I walked through the rooms, the quiet amplifying my unease. I found her favorite coffee mug still on the counter, a faint lipstick smudge on the rim. I picked it up, feeling a strange mix of longing and resentment. Why did this feel so wrong? Why was I so bothered? Was I truly being dramatic, or was there something else here, something she wasn't telling me? I tried to distract myself, turning on the TV, scrolling through my phone. But I couldn't focus. Every time I looked at the date on my phone, July 10th, the anniversary, a fresh wave of hurt washed over me. I decided to clean up the kitchen, just to keep busy. As I was wiping down the counter by the coffee machine, my hand brushed against something small, tucked slightly under a stack of old mail. It was a receipt, folded neatly in half. Curiosity, or perhaps a growing suspicion, made me unfold it. It was from a small boutique I didn't recognize, dated 2 weeks prior. What caught my eye wasn't the total, but the itemized purchase: a men's cologne. A high-end designer brand that I certainly didn't wear, nor had I ever expressed interest in. I stared at the receipt, a cold knot forming in my stomach. Why would Sarah buy men's cologne from a boutique she never shopped at, and for whom? The answer, unwelcome and chilling, began to echo in my mind. The receipt for the men's cologne felt like a physical blow. I held it in my hand, my mind racing, trying desperately to find an innocent explanation. Maybe it was a gift for her brother? But he lived across the country, and their birthdays weren't for months. A friend? Sarah rarely bought expensive gifts for male friends, and certainly not cologne. My own birthday had been 6 months ago, and she'd given me a book. This wasn't my scent, my style, or anything I'd ever hinted at wanting. It was a designer brand, something I'd seen advertised in magazines, something sophisticated and, frankly, out of my league. The cold knot in my stomach tightened into a painful twist. This wasn't just a random purchase. This was a deliberate act, an intentional gift for someone. And that someone wasn't me. I folded the receipt carefully and tucked it into my wallet, a burning coal in my pocket. The house, which had felt merely empty moments before, now felt like a stage for a betrayal I was only just beginning to uncover. My mind reeled back to the days leading up to her departure, her unusual giddiness which I'd dismissed as excitement for a rare getaway, her phone, always clutched in her hand, face down, screen locked. I'd thought it was just her being protective of her privacy, a habit she'd picked up over the years. Now it felt like a shield. I spent the rest of Friday night in a haze. I tried to watch TV, but the images blurred. I tried to read, but the words swam. Every creak of the house, every shadow, seemed to whisper Sarah's name, accompanied by the cloying scent of an expensive, unfamiliar cologne. I was angry, yes, but mostly I was confused and deeply, deeply hurt. 10 years. A decade of shared lives, shared dreams, shared anniversaries. How could she dismiss it so easily, and then leave me with this gnawing doubt? Saturday morning arrived, heavy and gray. I slept poorly, my dreams filled with distorted images of Sarah laughing with a faceless man. The first text from her came around 10 a.m. A generic, "Good morning. Having fun already, how's your weekend?" No mention of our anniversary, of course, no warmth, just a perfunctory check-in. I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral, asking about the resort and her friends. She sent back a picture a few minutes later. Sarah, Karen, and 2 other women I vaguely recognized from Sarah's social circles, all smiling brightly in bathrobes, holding mimosas. They looked relaxed, happy, too happy, perhaps. It was a perfect picture of a spa weekend. But then, my mind went back to another detail I'd tried to ignore, the bright, new cocktail dress I'd seen hanging in her closet the week before. It was a vibrant red, cut in a way that was distinctly not spa relaxation. I remembered asking her about it. She'd mumbled something about just needing something nice for dinner one night. But it had felt like an afterthought. Spa weekends, in my experience, involved comfort, light dresses, maybe a nice outfit for a casual dinner, not a show-stopping red cocktail dress. The image of the bathrobes and mimosas clashed sharply with the image of that dress. It was a small detail, but it lodged itself in my brain, another inconsistency. Later that afternoon, I decided to do something I told myself I wouldn't do. I went into Sarah's office, a space she usually kept locked when she wasn't using it, but today the door was ajar. I wasn't looking for anything specific, just a feeling. I sat at her desk, the air still faintly perfumed with her scent. My eyes fell on her laptop, closed on the corner of the desk. I knew her password. It wasn't a secret, but I hadn't touched her computer in years. My finger hovered over the power button. Guilt warred with the suffocating need for answers. What if I found nothing? What if I found everything? I pulled my hand back. I wasn't ready to cross that line yet. Not with her main computer. Instead, I started looking around the desk itself. Her planner lay open. I flipped back through the pages, scanning for anything unusual. Most entries were mundane: appointments, meetings, reminders. But then I noticed a recurring pattern. For the past 2 months, there were several entries marked simply with A, C, and a time, always in the late afternoon. They weren't followed by a location or a full name, just that single initial. I remembered Sarah sometimes leaving the house in the late afternoon, saying she was running errands or meeting a friend for coffee. I'd never questioned it. Now, the C looked less like a casual reminder and more like a code. My phone buzzed. It was Karen, Sarah's friend, the one who supposedly organized this trip. Her text was addressed to both Sarah and me. "Hey guys, just confirming dinner plans for next month at our place. Sarah mentioned July 10th was still good for you two?" I stared at the message. July 10th. Our anniversary. She'd just spent the last few weeks brushing off our anniversary plans, insisting she was busy, that we could celebrate later. And now, Karen was asking about a dinner next month on that very specific date, implying Sarah had already committed us to it. I felt a cold wave wash over me. Sarah had made plans for our anniversary next month without even consulting me, seemingly as a way to avoid celebrating it now. But why? Was it a decoy? A diversion? Or was she simply that oblivious? The fact that Karen, her supposed best friend and trip organizer, was so casually mentioning our actual anniversary date made Sarah's earlier dismissal sting even more. I typed out a quick, polite reply to Karen, saying I'd check with Sarah about July 10th. I didn't want to show my hand, didn't want to tip off Karen if she was unknowingly involved in a cover-up. The thought that Karen might be in on it, even partially, was unsettling. Sarah had always been so close to Karen. If Karen knew, then the betrayal ran even deeper. Later that evening, Sarah called. Her voice was bright, a little too bright. "Hey, babe, how's your weekend? Missing me yet?" "Hey," I said, trying to sound normal. "Yeah, it's quiet here. How's the spa? Everyone having a good time?" "Oh, it's amazing. We just got out of the hot tub. Planning dinner tonight. Might hit up one of the nicer restaurants here. Definitely not staying in a bathrobe for that," she laughed. My stomach clenched. "Oh, what did you decide to wear?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even, thinking of the red cocktail dress. "Just something casual chic," she said quickly. "Nothing too fancy." "Hey, listen, the girls are calling for me. I gotta go. We'll chat more tomorrow, okay? Love you." And then she hung up, before I could respond with more than a murmured, "Love you too." Casual chic. That was a convenient sidestep from the red dress, I thought. Her rushed goodbye, her eagerness to get off the phone. It all fed the growing monster of doubt inside me. She didn't ask about my day, didn't seem interested in how I was doing. It was all about her trip, her fun. The anniversary was completely unmentioned, unspoken, an elephant in the room that only I seemed to acknowledge. I found myself pacing the house again, the silence oppressive, the red dress, the cologne receipt, the address in her planner. Karen's innocent text about our anniversary dinner for next month, Sarah's guarded phone, her dismissive attitude. It was like pieces of a puzzle, scattered and distorted. Each one, by itself, could be explained away. Together, they started to form a deeply unsettling picture. A picture of a woman who was actively creating distance, building a wall of secrecy, and erasing our shared history. I decided to try something else. I remembered Sarah had mentioned a specific resort in Monterey, one with a famous spa. It wasn't hard to find online. I pulled up their website, looking at pictures of the grounds, the rooms, the restaurant. Then, I clicked on the events section. Sometimes resorts listed local happenings, special dinners, or entertainment. My eyes scanned the listings for the weekend. There was a jazz night on Friday, a wine tasting on Saturday afternoon, and then a summer gala listed for Saturday evening, requiring, quote, cocktail attire, a formal event. My breath caught in my throat. Cocktail attire, a red cocktail dress. The pieces snapped together with a chilling clarity. The elegant cologne, the secretive calls, the elaborate dress, the rushed goodbyes, the casual dismissal of our anniversary. It wasn't just a spa weekend. She wasn't just meeting friends. She was at a gala, dressed to impress, and the cologne wasn't for her brother. The realization hit me like a physical blow. The kind of realization that doesn't scream with anger, but whispers with a profound, terrifying certainty. I sat there, staring at the screen, the glossy images of the resort now mocking me. My anniversary, our anniversary, was being spent not quietly with friends at a spa, but at a formal gala, and she was there with someone else. I didn't have proof, not really, but the doubt had transformed into a conviction, a cold, hard stone in my chest. The kind of conviction that demands answers, no matter how painful they might be. The certainty that had settled over me wasn't comforting. It was cold, hard, and utterly devastating. She wasn't just away with friends. She was at a gala, dressed for an event she'd carefully hidden, and the cologne I'd found wasn't for some unknown female friend. It was for a man. The thought was a raw wound, bleeding an icy despair into my chest. I spent the rest of Friday night and the entirety of Saturday in a fog, going through the motions of existence, but my mind was a whirlwind of frantic, desperate searches. I pulled out the cologne receipt again, the sleek paper feeling impossibly heavy in my hand. I hadn't paid much attention to the brand name before, just the fact that it was cologne. Now I Googled it. It was an exclusive high-end fragrance, not something you'd pick up casually. More importantly, it was a brand I'd never worn, and certainly not something I'd ever mentioned wanting. It clicked then. This wasn't a gift for me, intended to surprise. It was a calculated purchase, and the price tag suggested it was for someone important to her, not just a casual acquaintance. The knot in my stomach tightened, pulling everything in me taut. My eyes then drifted to Sarah's planner, lying open on her desk from earlier in the week. Those recurring C entries. They stood out like flashing neon signs now. "Caleb," I muttered, the name coming to me unbidden. It was a common enough name, but the feeling of foreboding was anything but. I started flipping back through the planner, my heart pounding with each page. For the past 2 months there were C entries. Not every week, but often enough to be a pattern. They were always late afternoon, early evening. C drinks. C dinner. C project review. Sometimes it was just a plain C. I tried to recall where Sarah had been those evenings. She'd always had an excuse. A late meeting, a new client, drinks with an old college friend I'd never met. My memory, usually sharp, felt like a sieve as I tried to reconstruct those nights, searching for the small details that had seemed so innocent at the time. I needed more, something to either confirm or deny this growing horror. I pulled out my own calendar, a shared digital one we mostly used for family events and appointments. I cross-referenced the dates with her handwritten C entries. On 6 separate occasions over the last 2 months, Sarah had a C entry in her personal planner, while on our shared calendar, her entry was late meeting, client dinner, or gym. The inconsistencies weren't just random, they were deliberate diversions. It wasn't just a coincidence anymore, it was a pattern of deception, meticulously planned and executed. I felt a surge of cold fury, quickly followed by a wave of nausea. I wanted to call Karen, to ask her point blank what was happening, but what would I say? Is Sarah at a gala with some guy named Caleb? That would only tip her off, and Karen, bless her naive heart, might just be an unwitting participant in this charade. I decided to try a more subtle approach. I checked Karen's social media. She was usually pretty active, posting pictures of everything. But there was nothing from the girls' weekend except a single, blurry photo of 3 women's feet, painted toenails clinking champagne glasses. No faces, no location tag, nothing to suggest a gala, or even the resort. It was generic, almost too generic. It felt staged, designed to show fun, without revealing anything. The house felt like a tomb. Every silence was deafening, every creak of the floorboards a judgment. I found myself pacing, unable to sit still, my mind replaying every moment of the last few months. Every distant look, every hurried phone call, every time she'd been vague about her whereabouts. It all made a sickening kind of sense now, fitting into a mosaic of betrayal. I looked at our wedding photo on the mantel, our faces young and hopeful, full of promises. The contrast was stark, almost unbearable. Sleep was impossible that night. My body was exhausted, but my mind raced, trapped in a loop of suspicion and dread. I kept looking at my phone, half expecting Sarah to call, to explain everything away, to tell me she was coming home. But her communication had been minimal. A few curt texts about having fun and missing me, which now felt like hollow mockery. She hadn't even called. Not even a quick anniversary call. Just texts. It was a stark reminder of the emotional distance that had crept between us. Around 2 a.m., as I lay staring at the ceiling, I heard it. A soft vibration from the living room. Sarah's old phone. She sometimes used it as a backup or for specific apps, leaving it charging in the living room if she forgot her main one upstairs. I hadn't even noticed it was there. My heart leaped into my throat, a sudden jolt of adrenaline cutting through my exhaustion. I crept out of bed, my bare feet silent on the wooden floor. The screen was lit up. An incoming call. The name on the screen made my blood run cold, chilling me to the bone. A name I had seen just hours earlier in her planner. Caleb. My hand trembled as I reached for the phone. I stared at the name, a cold dread washing over me, knowing that answering this call would irrevocably change everything. The phone rang again, insistent, breaking the oppressive silence of our home. I squeezed my eyes shut for a moment, wishing I could unsee what I had seen, unhear what I had heard. But the moment had passed. The choice was made the moment I saw the name. With a deep, shuddering breath, I slid my finger across the screen and answered. "Hey, it's me. Everything okay? You didn't answer my last call. Just checking in. Did you make it back to the room all right? I'm still at the bar, just wanted to make sure you were good after the gala. Text me when you're settled, okay? Love you." The voice was unmistakably male, confident, and deeply intimate. The words hit me like physical blows, each one a hammer shattering another piece of my world. Love you. Not love ya or see ya. A full, confident, casual love you. And our room, and the gala, it was all there. I didn't say a word, just stood there, breathing heavily into the phone, the world spinning around me. I heard a distant click on the other end, and the call disconnected. The silence that followed was heavier than anything I had ever known. My marriage was over. It wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It was a cold, hard, undeniable fact. The phone slipped from my grasp, clattering softly onto the carpet. I didn't pick it up. I just stood there, staring at nothing, hearing only the echo of "love you" in my head. It wasn't just a suspicion anymore. It was a cold, hard, undeniable fact. My marriage, our 10 years, the life we built, it was all a lie, or at least, a lie for her. The air in the house suddenly felt thin, suffocating. I went to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and just stood there, leaning against the cold granite counter. My hands were shaking, but my mind felt strangely clear, almost surgical in its precision. The questions, the doubts, the agonizing uncertainty of the past few days, they were gone, replaced by a devastating absolute certainty. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even try. I just sat in the dark living room, replaying every moment, every interaction, every dismissed anniversary, every C in her planner. The pieces fit together with horrifying perfection, forming a picture I never wanted to see. I had spent so much energy trying to deny it, trying to find an innocent explanation, that the sheer relief of knowing even this terrible truth was almost overwhelming. By the time the first light of dawn crept through the blinds, painting the room in pale grays, I had a plan. It wasn't a plan born of anger or revenge, but of a quiet, profound exhaustion. I just wanted it to be over. Sarah was due back sometime Sunday afternoon. I spent the morning preparing, not for a fight, but for an ending. I gathered the evidence, the cologne receipt, a printout of the resort's gala schedule, a screenshot of Karen's generic social media post from her spa weekend, and a printout of Sarah's planner entries for the past 2 months. I even typed out a timeline, meticulously noting the C entries and comparing them to our shared digital calendar, highlighting her flimsy excuses. It all went into a manila folder, which I placed on the coffee table in the living room. It felt clinical, impersonal, but I knew I needed to be ready, to be firm, to not let her manipulate me one last time. The sound of her car pulling into the driveway around 3 p.m. was like a physical jolt. I heard the trunk pop, the muted thud of luggage being removed. I stayed seated in the living room, hands clasped, watching the front door. When she walked in, she looked different. There was a lightness in her step, a radiant glow I hadn't seen in her in years, a glow I now knew wasn't from a spa weekend with friends. Her hair was still styled from the night before, a little mussed but beautiful. She carried a small duffel bag in her designer purse. "Hey, honey, I'm back," she called out, her voice bright, almost giddy. She stopped short when she saw me, sitting in the quiet living room, the manila folder prominently displayed on the coffee table. Her smile faltered slightly. What's all this?" she asked, her tone shifting, a hint of unease creeping in. "Have a good weekend?" I asked, my voice flat, betraying none of the turmoil inside. I watched her carefully. She moved to put her bags down by the stairs, her gaze flickering to the folder and then back to me. "Yeah, it was really great, so relaxing. We got massages, did some yoga. Karen was hilarious, as always. You know, just what I needed." She rambled, her eyes darting around the room, avoiding mine. The bright cocktail dress she had packed, I realized, was likely already put away, or perhaps still in her bag. "Did you go to the gala last night?" I asked, cutting through her narrative. My directness caught her off guard. She froze, her breath hitched. The what? Oh, that. "No, honey, that was for, like, the resort guests. We just stayed in, had room service, watched a movie. It was a spa weekend, remember? Her voice was a little too quick, a little too loud. Her eyes finally met mine, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of fear. I picked up the manila folder. The slight rustle of papers sounded deafening in the silence. "Sarah, we need to talk, all of it." I gestured to the folder. "Everything." She sank onto the edge of the armchair opposite me, her face paling. "David, what are you talking about? What is all this?" Her voice was weak now, the confidence gone. "Let's start with this," I said, pulling out the cologne receipt. I slid it across the coffee table towards her. "High-end men's cologne. From a boutique you've never shopped at. 2 weeks ago. This isn't for me, is it? You know I don't wear cologne, let alone this brand." She picked up the receipt, her fingers trembling slightly. Her eyes scanned it. Then she placed it back on the table, her gaze fixed on the mahogany. It was a gift. For a client. "A client?" I raised an eyebrow, a cold, humorless smile touching my lips. "A client you meet at, see? Entries in your planner, maybe." I pulled out the planner printout, highlighting the recurring C's. Late meetings, client dinners, gym sessions that never quite lined up with the gym's hours. Funny how these C's started popping up around the same time you started changing your phone password and clutching it like a lifeline. She flinched. "David, you're being ridiculous. You're overreacting. You always do this." It was her old tactic, gaslighting, dismissing my feelings. But this time it didn't work. The certainty was too strong. "Dramatic, right?" I said, the words laced with a bitterness I couldn't hide. Just like I was being dramatic about wanting to celebrate our 10th anniversary. The 10th anniversary you just spent at a gala, with a man who wasn't me. I pushed the screenshot of the gala schedule towards her, along with the resort's website page describing the, quote, elegant cocktail attire required. "Funny how you packed that new, bright red cocktail dress for a spa weekend of massages and yoga, isn't it?" Her face was ashen. She tried to speak, but no words came out. She just looked at me, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and something I could only describe as shame. "And then there's Caleb," I continued, my voice steady, betraying the hurricane inside me. "Last night, your old phone," he called, from our room at the resort. He was concerned you hadn't joined him at the gala yet, and he said, 'Love you, Sarah, love you.'" I watched her, waiting for a response, but she just sat there, frozen, staring at me, as if I were a stranger. "Are you going to deny that too?" A tear escaped her eye, tracing a path through her perfectly applied makeup. She slowly shook her head, a barely perceptible movement. "David, her voice was a whisper, broken. "Don't, just don't," I interrupted, holding up a hand. "I don't want to hear the excuses, the justifications, I didn't mean to hurt yous. It's too late for that. It was too late the moment you decided to spend our anniversary with another man, after dismissing it as meaningless to me." The silence in the room stretched, thick and suffocating. The reality of what I was saying, what she was admitting, hung heavy between us. It was the end. The absolute, undeniable end. "I want to divorce Sarah," I said, my voice hoarse but firm. "I want you to move out. Not immediately, but we need to start making arrangements. I can't live here with you anymore. I can't pretend this didn't happen. I can't look at you without seeing him." She finally looked up, her eyes pleading, wet with tears. "David, please, I made a mistake, a terrible mistake. Please, let's talk about this. We can fix this." 10 years, David. 10 years. 10 years, I echoed, my gaze sweeping around the living room, at the life we had built together, now shattered. "That's exactly what I was thinking about this weekend. While you were with him. While you were dismissing me as dramatic for wanting to acknowledge it. 10 years of my life, built on what I thought was trust, respect, and commitment. Only one of us felt that way, didn't we?" I stood up, the action definitive. "I'm not fixing this, Sarah. It's broken beyond repair. The trust is gone. The respect is gone. I don't even know who you are anymore. There's nothing left to save." She collapsed back into the armchair, burying her face in her hands, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. The sight didn't move me. The well of emotion I thought I had for her had run dry, replaced by a deep, aching emptiness. I walked over to the window, looking out at the perfectly manicured lawn, the setting sun casting long shadows. My anniversary. The day she left. The day our marriage ended. The quiet of the house was no longer heavy with dread. It was filled with the stark, cold reality of a life that would never be the same. I had to figure out how to start over. It wouldn't be easy, but at least now, I knew what I was fighting for. My own peace.